Randy.
Hi.
And you're an Air Force veteran.
Yes.
How long did you serve?
I served for 9 years.
And where were you?
I went in Texas, enlisted in Texas, and I served 4 years in Tonopah Test Range, 3 years in Bitburg, Germany, and then finished in Carswell Air Force Base in Fort Worth.
Why did you enlist?
I guess as a kid, John Wayne was a hero. I always had a patriotic mentality. My grandpa was a retired Army, fought in World War II in Korea. My uncle fought in Vietnam, and so I just felt compelled. That's what I wanted to do. You know, I saw the Blue Berets, Air Force Security Police, and wanted to do that, and so I joined to that, and also, you know, right out of high school, I was ready to get out of town as well. But
yeah, how old were you?
well, at the time I was 19. Just had turned 20 and enlisted, but I had to wait almost a year before it came up for to go to Lackland and start my basic training in my tech school.
What did you think when you heard that you were going to Tonopah?
I had no clue. It's kind of funny because what happened is I ended up in, like everybody in the Air Force enlisted, they go through Lackland Air Force Base basic training. Our tech school was also at Lackland. And when I was at Lackland Security Police Academy, I got orders for Loring Air Force Base, Maine. And you know, everybody knows Maine, the cold winters, and I'm like, as a security police, I'm going to be standing in that snow. I don't want to do it. Fortunately, our Chief Ralph Panzerino, came down to our test school. They called everybody into the auditorium and said, we have a special duty assignment. We can't tell you anything about it, but if you're interested, we'll be doing interviews and hand-picking, selecting a few of you and your orders will be changed. And so I went through the interview. I was like, I just want to get out of Loring. I don't care where it is. I just don't want to go to Loring. So I interviewed, got handpicked by Chief Panzerino, and then they told us your orders will be immediately changed. When you're done with your training, you're going to fly to Nellis Air Force Base where you'll wait until you're told it's time to come. So we had no clue what we were getting into.
Did you feel special?
Yes, we did. And everybody did. And it was a brotherhood. 20 of us in the tech school all came together, and they kind of brought us in groups. So
did they tell you why you were handpicked?
No, we interviewed. He got to pick. Chief Panzerino was actually, when they first started the unit, he was chosen to build the entire unit. It's like saying go into this town and start a whole new police department. So he handpicked everybody. The beginning, all the people that started that, he handpicked them himself, and so we did feel special, you know. And he was John Wayne to all of us, you know. He was a great man, and but we felt special the way we were treated out there.
You felt fortunate to be chosen.
Yes, very much so.
When did you learn what you would actually be doing?
When we touched down, we basically, as your clearances are done, get on that plane over there, and we got on the plane. It's funny. The first time we flew up north, about 250 miles from Vegas. It was so cloudy we couldn't even touch down. We still didn't know. We had to turn around and come back. Get off the plane, refuel, go back up. We touched down, and finally, when we touched down, they took us and started showing us, briefing us on what was going on and what we were going to be doing. So that was the moment we knew.
And what did they tell you, and what did you think?
Well, they showed us, they took us into the hangar, showed us the stealth fighter. We also saw other assets, the MiGs that were up there. And of course, we just did regular security police duties, which was protect the resource in the base. And most of the airman type work is outdoor work. You're out on the outskirts, on the edges, working sentry or entry control, stuff like that. So I was fortunate enough after about 2 years to get selected to work in the armory. So then I got to start working inside as an armor for my final 2 years.
Did you tell anyone what you were doing there?
No, we couldn't. Well, nobody had a clue where we went and what we did. My own family had no clue.
What did you tell them?
I said, I work in Nevada. That's all. I said, I can't tell you where I go. We go away for 4 days, and we come back in 4 days. Every 4 days we're there, every 4 days we're here. But we couldn't even tell them what part of the state we went to, even if we were in the state. We just left for 4 days and came back.
Did they tell you anything about contamination or any risks?
No, absolutely not. We had no clue. We didn't even think about it. You know, back then there wasn't a whole lot known. And when you're, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, you don't even think about that kind of stuff. You just assume your government is looking after you. If there was an issue, they would tell us. I do know that initially some of the NCOs that were there first were issued dosimeters, and they were pretty quickly taken away from them. And there were still a few people up there that were wearing dosimeters. Still didn't make any connection. Just assumed it's perfectly safe.
Explain what those are.
Dosimeter is a little badge that you wear that detects radiation, and it'll change colors or whatever, and do things. Those things, they deteriorate, so they don't. The readings don't last forever. So even if you located them today, they wouldn't be correct, from my understanding. I'm not a scientist, but that's all it is just to tell you if you're in a hot area. We never wore those. We were never warned about it. Now we would get warned. We would be warned about if there was going to be a test downrange, because typically whenever they did any above ground test, any testing, they would do it when the wind direction was headed straight towards us, because otherwise it'd be headed the other direction, would be straight towards Vegas. And so we would get a briefing every once in a while that this is what you do if the alarm sounds that wind direction is headed our direction, the fallout, where to go. But that was really rare, but I do recall a few times them telling us about that.
What were you supposed to do in those situations?
Just go into a building. I can't remember which building it was. There's fallout shelters.
Do you feel that put you at risk in any way?
Yeah, but then again, like I said, our government, we trust them. Why should we worry? They're not telling us to worry. They're not telling us anything we're supposed to worry about.
You said you trusted your government.
Right. We had no reason, when you're a young airman, male, female, whatever, you have no reason, especially back then, people trusted their government even more than today. People are pretty cynical today. They don't trust their government. Back then, we had no reason not to. And at that age, we didn't think about things like that. It was an adventure. It was cool because we were so classified, nobody could even ask questions about us. We'd go disappear and come back in 4 days. And it was just, we were well taken care of up there as far as the facilities and the housing and all that kind of stuff, and just figured, well, they know what's going on. There was no talk about any of that stuff out there. So
what do you know now?
A lot. I mean, Dave's been doing a lot of research, and all the things we've been going over, we've discovered all the fallout that's occurred. We didn't know that there was multiple above ground detonations in that general area where we were, as well as all the fallout from all the downrange the testing that they did. They call them shots, I guess, those nuclear tests. But it's taken us doing all of our digging deep in the research. All that stuff is just fragmented information that you start digging and start putting it together, and nobody knew. Our leadership didn't know. The NCOs, the airmen surely didn't know. And back then, you think about it, we had no access to any information. How are you going to find out? There was no internet. There was nothing.
It strikes me as you're talking about being put up in that facility, that was so nice, and provided food and water. I mean, what was in the water? What was in the ground? What was in the food?
Exactly. Well, there was we did find reports of an in-ground detonation. They dug a hole pretty deep, within probably 2 to 3 miles of our housing area, and on the opposite side of it was the base. They detonated that about 20 years before we were there. And it blew the cap all the way, they think, to outer space. I don't know. But it vented all over the desert, all the desert floor. And the British, the French, and the Americans were testing dirty bomb stuff, from my understanding, from the research we've done, in different areas around that base. And all that, and then they come in 20 years later and they start developing an area. They needed an area. I mean, the Cold War is what forced this, what kind of pushed this. There was a strong push to put pressure on the Soviets to try to crush the Soviets in the Cold War, and it was an arms race. Where else are we going to test things, do things? The government doesn't just have all this acreage everywhere they can just seal off from the general public and do all this testing of different things. So it happened to be there, and to them it was worth it. To the environmental risk, the risk to personnel, I think the attitude was, we'll deal with that later, but we need this. And then when Ronald Reagan took over as president in 1980, that even accelerated. That's how he brought the Soviets down. They just couldn't compete anymore. So that was justification for all of that. The thought of what's happening to people, I think, was just kind of put on a back burner, wasn't considered. And plus, back then, they didn't really know as much as they know now. You know, only evidence they had of any kind of research about contamination or exposure to ionized radiation was when they dropped the bombs on Japan. So there really wasn't a bunch.
How contaminated was the site where you were living and working?
Well, we never knew how contaminated it was. We know that it was a low dose contamination, that all the different stuff that was vented, the reports, there were signs in different areas that stay out of here. You know, you got a barbed wire fence telling you don't go to the other side of this barbed wire fence because it's contaminated. Barbed wire stops a lot of dust in the wind, doesn't it? You know, it was kind of silly. It just blown all over that desert floor in that valley. So, but as far as knowing, we're not privy to that kind of information, how contaminated. We know it was, and the evidence is in all the sickness and illness and everything. But the thing is, with that type of exposure, it's not an immediate issue that shows up. You're not going to know about it. 30 years down the road, they didn't know about social media back then. None of that. They didn't imagine that all of a sudden people would have access to information everywhere, or can reconnect through Facebook and stuff like that. That's what accelerated all this. That's what brought it all to light, is we're like, when you start putting everything together, it starts to make sense, and now we know. So, you know, things that happened to me, I wondered, you know, there's nobody in my family has these things. I don't know anybody. I know a lot of people back in Dallas-Fort Worth, all my childhood friends all the way up. Nobody has what I have. But then my buddies that I was stationed with, they do. So, you know, like the lipomas that Dave talked about, stuff like that.
Tell me about the miscarriages.
Well, I know that when I got married near the end of my assignment there, at the time, my wife at the time, she miscarried twice. You know, and then, but like I said, you're young, you don't know any of that. You just trust the doctors. The doctors probably didn't make any kind of connection. Then I find out later that all the guys, their wives, a lot of them said, oh yeah, my wife had a miscarriage. Oh yeah, my wife had a miscarriage. We're just young kids. We don't know. We just assume that's just natural. It happens all the time.
It wasn't uncommon for the wives.
It was not uncommon, no. But then they didn't talk. I mean, you know, that much. It was just something that happened. You let it go. It's a private matter, of course. Now, years later, when you talk to guys, oh yeah, my wife had a miscarriage. Oh,
do you think more miscarriages were happening near that area than in the general population?
I absolutely believe that. I absolutely believe that. Because even since then, people I'm around, you know, just generally speaking, I don't hear too much about miscarriages. Not like happened back then. Yeah, and it never happened after that. It was just then. And I think that was because we've discovered through research that it disrupts the reproductive system. You go up there, a young man goes up there, out there in the desert, you're covered with all this dust, you're getting all this ionized radiation, either ingesting it, getting on you, whatever. Well, that breaks the genetic chains or whatever. Like I said, I'm not a scientist at all. I don't know the science.
But it literally affects the sperm.
It affects the sperm. And that's, I guess, you know, the woman's body, it's their way of rejecting it. But when it doesn't get rejected, it can also pass along birth defects, I believe. And I think that's what was happening. And it's just, it makes me angry to think about that now that we've discovered this. We had no clue.
What makes you angry?
All this happened to us. We weren't told. They knew. There's environmental impact studies that were done right before that. I get it that there was a strong need to be able to have a place to do this, and that was the chosen place. I understand that for national security reasons. But it's not okay to not give people the opportunity to decline that. You know, we sign up, when we go in, we expect to be placed in danger, and there's a risk of losing our lives for our country. This isn't that. This is not something you sign up for. Given that option, if you tell people, hey, you know what, 30 years from now, or, you know, some of your kids may have birth defects, something like that. 30 years from now, you may start having strong health effects because it's that long-term effect. Do you still want to go? Who's going to say yes? You know, it's not right. And that makes me angry. It makes me angry of all the people we've lost. It makes me angry with all these families that have to suffer because their husband or their wife isn't there anymore. The men I served with that passed away, that don't know, they still don't know what happened to their loved one, their father, their mother. These guys died not knowing what killed them. And like I said, without social media interconnecting us, everyone would have just died thinking, I'm just one of those people that gets this. You start looking at the numbers and it's way off. And you've got to also remember, when you join the military, especially back then, you take an extensive physical exam. This doctor's job is to see if he can eliminate you and deny you for some minor health issue. So you've got the healthiest of your society, your young people entering in. Now at our age, comparison to general society, we're probably some of the sickest. So that's, something happened, and I'm convinced it's because of all that.
I want to get back to this before we get too far away.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 miscarriages that your wife suffered while you were there, what toll did that take? What was that like?
We thought we weren't going to be able to have kids, basically. We just thought that, if this is going to keep happening, maybe we won't have children.
How old were you at that time?
At that time, I was 24 and she was 19. And we just, but like I said, it's you don't know to blame it on anything. You don't know what causes it. You just think that's natural. It happens. You can keep trying, but I can imagine with a woman after a couple not wanting to even try again. So it was years later, probably 4 or 5 years later before we even tried again.
And you did end up having 2 sons.
Yes, I ended up having 2 sons.
Were they affected in any way?
Yes, I believe so. They're both, my oldest son has an autoimmune disease. He seems to picks up all this strange stuff all the time. Whether it's vitiligo, shingles at 16 years old, it's lots of allergies. He's just very sensitive to his environment, a lot of things. My youngest son has a birth defect, has a heart defect. So we had to worry about that. And, ironically, because of that, growing up and me being self-employed, I could not even get insurance. They wouldn't qualify, so insurance companies wouldn't even cover us because of that. So we dealt with that for 20 years until finally, President Obama with the Obamacare kind of pushed things out there where, more and more people, the insurance companies had to start allowing that.
That's enough to financially break
most
families.
Yes. And it worried me all the time. And I always wondered, I was like, is this because of me? That's the hardest part on a father. You think you did something. And it's your job to protect your children, and you just, it haunts you. It never stops haunting. You wonder, is this going to happen to my grandchildren? I'm blessed. I have 3 great grandchildren now. They're wonderful. They're small. They're 3, 1 and 1, and they're perfectly healthy. But you worry about that. The things that I have are just at 30 years old. Started getting skin cancers, basal cell carcinomas. I've had 4 of them cut off. I've had 50 spots on my arms frozen off. And like I said, I'm fixing to have to do that chemotherapy cream on my face. The lipomas started right as I was exiting the Air Force. I asked a civilian doctor, and he said, don't worry about it. If it was cancer, you'd be dead. And I didn't have insurance to start going to people. No one gave me answers. And I was getting more and more, and over the years, just wondered, where are these coming from? Why?
How old were you when the tumors started appearing on your body?
I was about 30. Yeah, right as I was exiting.
How many of them?
I've had, the VA is cutting them out. I've had 4 cut out. I've still got more. I'm still scheduled to have more. They only do like 1 at a time. And they've been helpful, and the surgeons have been really good. They'll take care of them, they'll cut them out, but it's just the mere fact that, and there's painful, sometimes the scars can be a little painful, but just having to have that done and wondering where that comes from. And you can imagine anybody that has some lump grow up underneath their skin, they worry. What is this? Is this cancer? And because it just pops up out of nowhere, and then to find out everybody else that I was stationed with, a lot of guys have those. So you just know it's connected.
What is your thought process? What does it mean to you that your children it may be that they've gone through really difficult health consequences because of a few years that you spent
Yep.
in Nevada serving your country.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it always bothers me. It always bothers me. Did I limit their ability to have a full, complete life? Was it something my choices caused this upon them? Choosing to asking to get out of lawyering and going and interviewing for a job that put me in a situation that exposed me to things that I passed down to my children. That's the biggest fear any parent has. And that will never go away.
Do you feel that it was really your choice, given that you did not have consent? You didn't know what you were signing up for?
No, I mean, it really wasn't my choice, and I trusted that we wouldn't be. You don't even have to think about it. They placed me in harm's way. You just assume that they wouldn't do something like that.
Explain the chemo cream to me. So now you're going to have to apply a chemo cream to your face every day
Right.
forever? What is this?
Well, no, it's a therapy that helps kill off. What it does is just you apply it to areas on your face, and it after about 4 days it'll start to burn your face basically, and it just kills off all the precancerous spots on your face. They're trying to stop because I've already had 2 surgeries on my face, pretty significant. I'm fortunate that the surgeons are good at what they do, and so it's limited the scarring and stuff. But that's the next phase, and they told me to start doing this, and as things pop up periodically, to use this stuff.
People think about skin cancer and they think, oh, well, it's someone who must have spent a ton of time in the sun. You tanned all the time. Like maybe you're a young man, no sun protection, just out baking all day. Is that what happened here?
No. I mean, we had cover, but back then, of course, they didn't issue sunscreen and stuff like that. But we had long sleeves, we had hats, cover, sunglasses, all of that. And typically, like when I had a civilian doctor did my first surgery, because he even questioned. He was like, well, that's kind of odd for at your age to have a basal cell carcinoma. Typically, older people get those. They're common amongst older people because of a lifetime in the sun. That's not something you get when you're young, really. But a lot of people will get them later on. But at this rate, I feel like the exposure, when you Google, can exposure to ionized radiation called basal cell carcinoma? Absolutely. And what's weird about it, what I've found in Googling it, is a lot of the effects, when you're exposed at a young age, you're more likely to have issues later on in life, as opposed to much older people that get exposed. And it's that low dose exposure over a long period of time, 4 years that's how long I was there. It shows up 20, 30 years later.
Yeah.
Some people a little sooner, but that's when it shows up. So there's nobody saying I was there and I'm hurt now. You're just now realizing it. Because there really wasn't much of a history before that. The people who were affected, atomic veterans, stuff like that, those things are being addressed or have been addressed. This is a new situation that's just now showing itself.
What does the DOD say about all of this?
They're just quiet. They don't need to say anything because we were all data masked. Our orders were data masked, basically that we didn't exist. We were never there. They don't have to come forward and do anything. If we file a claim with the VA, disability claim, the VA can't get any information from DOD to acknowledge it. So right now it's just nothing. We don't have a person to go to at DOD. Thank God for Congressman Amadei that's championing our cause and sponsoring the bill. We thought that the VA was our, as veterans, was the route we're supposed to take. Well, the VA can only do what DOD tells them.
Why do you think the DOD is doing this?
It's one of two things. Either it's just we're lost and forgotten over time. They've not considered it. They haven't thought about it. Didn't realize this was going to happen. Or they don't want it coming out. They don't want to have to deal with it. It may be a financial reason. I don't know. I believe we do need to have a mission, and there's vital stuff for national security that takes place. So I'm not against all of that. But I think it's easier just to keep it quiet.
Do you think it would be a risk to national security for them to acknowledge that all of you were presumptively exposed to ionizing radiation and likely have health effects as a result?
Absolutely not. No, I think what they could do is very easily set it up and identify all of us and let the VA know and create a presumptive, it's already proven through the civilian Department of Energy bill and everything that the desert was contaminated, as well as the environmental impact studies. So just by telling the VA, these things are presumptive, these individuals were there, and address it correctly. And
how crazy is that there are DOE employees who served alongside you, sometimes farther away, sometimes for less time than all of you did, who are presumptively covered for all of their health effects, and all of you are left out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy for them. I'm thankful that Senator Bill Richardson's staff, I believe, was the first one, but that was a bipartisan bill that President Clinton signed. I'm glad that those people got help. I think there should be more help for them and their families, but I'm very happy for them. I think it's wrong that we were taken out of the bill, and specifically demanded that any reference to DoD personnel be removed from the bill. They'll take care of their own. Well, here we are. That's what we're asking for.
Yeah. In your statement to me, you wrote that our country knew. Can you say that again for me?
I believe our country knew. It was in the reports. And it's one of those things, we'll deal with it down the road. I don't think the people who made those decisions, they're not around anymore. So it's not anybody currently that you can blame. You can't do an investigation and find out who's responsible for this. There's not really a person to point to. It's just step up now, take care of the veterans. That, they signed up not knowing this was going to happen to them. Just step up and do the right thing.
It seems like there was a small group of really young men, young Americans, who by and large were very patriotic, who were really excited for this mission and excited to contribute in this critical moment of the Cold War to serve their country. Do you feel that the DoD and the government was willing to sacrifice these young men?
It seems that way. You really start to feel that way. You start to feel sacrificed. You start to feel like they felt it was necessary, and they felt that we wouldn't discover any of this. Like I said, I go back to that we wouldn't have known unless we had, this social media, just putting together a Facebook page, trying to gather old buddies back together again. And you start locating people, and then eventually you get a large enough group of people, and then you say, let's have a reunion, get together, and then you're sitting around saying, and that's what happened with us. And I was like, I thought, I'm going to ask everybody if they're having these lumps as well. And so Dave and I got to talking. Other guys go, yeah, I've got it too. Yeah, I've got it too. This isn't normal. That led us down a path, and we started discovering and researching, and there's no denying it.
Tell me about this. It's a reunion barbecue.
Right.
And what makes you, in the middle of eating hot dogs and catching up, say, hey, does anyone here have a tumor? Exactly what happened? Set the scene. What was this?
Well, it bothered me forever because I did, as I got older, I did start thinking, maybe I got exposed to something up there. Maybe something happened. So I asked the guys, we're just sitting around drinking beers. I said, you guys, I got this lump on my back. And I don't know, has anybody else got that? And Dave goes, yeah, I had a big one cut out. Another guy, I'm not going to mention any names because they're not here, but other guy said, yeah, I've got it. And since then, other guys have been showing their scars. Yeah, look at this, I got a scar, one cut off here, and all of that. And it's like, wait a minute. I don't know anybody back home, no one in my family that has these. They're not that common. Doctors will tell you, oh, those happen, don't worry about it. Yeah, but not like this.
So you're sitting at this reunion barbecue. What goes through your mind when you find out that 6 out of the 8 guys there all say, yeah, I've had tumors, and the 7th one says, I don't have it, but my son was born with one? It
started to register with me. Okay, all right. What I was thinking before, it just kind of confirmed it. There was an issue. Where we were, that's the one common denominator, is we were all there. And so at first I was just a little stunned, and I was just worried. I was worried, what else is there? And we just continued to talk about it. And then that's kind of triggered, Dave started doing all the research. And we all started doing research. as we started talking and said, hey, you know, look up this, look up that, look what I found here, and you start piling all this together. Nobody's done all this research. The government hasn't done the research, but it's the wonders of the internet and all the information that's out there now that you can discover all this and put this together. But then it started to make me angry, very angry. Why did this happen to us? And then we start discovering all these people that have already passed away. And then even in the process of those going through this, we bury our chief. You know, we find out other guys have passed away. We can't find a lot of people. You know, there's close to 300 that we have identified that have already passed away, but I believe there's a lot more because we just absolutely cannot locate people.
Have you lost people who you served with, who you knew personally?
Absolutely. My first supervisor, this man was, I don't want to mention his name, but he recently retired from as an Indiana State Trooper. He was a Boy Scout. Didn't drink, did everything perfect, you know, retired, perfect health, and then all of a sudden he gets a condition that can be caused by exposure, a liver condition that took him down fast, and he was gone. You know, and you're chatting with people on Facebook and stuff, and you don't hear from somebody in a month or two, you start to wonder what happened to them, and you find out they're gone. And that's kind of the stuff that's been happening, is people rapidly get something, and then all of a sudden they're out. And it does affect you. It is affecting all of us.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier it takes a toll. Talk more about that.
Absolutely. Well, it wears on you. You worry, am I next? It's almost like it's dominoes. The domino effect of starting to fall, and you're angry, you're fearful, and you don't know where to go, what to do. And all we're saying is, you know, it's time to step up. You know, like the motto in the military, leave no man behind. We feel like we got left behind. That's the truth. And we're just asking them to step up and do what's right.
What do you want every American to know about this story?
It's true. People I talk to are kind of like, holy cow, I had no idea. We had no idea ourselves. We didn't contribute to this. We had nothing to do with any nuclear testing or anything like that. We were just serving our country. And we want the American people to understand we're just asking for help for something that should not have happened to us. We want the American people to support us on this. And that's all we can ask for.
Do you have anything to say about NewsNation doing this story?
I absolutely appreciate what y'all are doing. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for picking up our cause. We need your help. Without y'all and without other people that are supporting us, I mean, we can't get the word out. And that's our mission. And we're committed to this, and we thank you for being there for us. So.
Is there anything that you want to add, Juliet? Is there anything you want to add that I forgot to ask?
No.
Zach.
Yeah, that one question I kept asking is,
Yeah.
knowing what you know now, would you do it again?
Oh, all right. Knowing what I know now, would I do it again? I would serve my country in a heartbeat to the day I die. If they called me, I would go. But no, if I knew what had happened up there, nobody would take that mission on. It'd be a fool to. You're risking your family. It's not just us, it's your family as well. So no, I absolutely would not take on that mission. You know, I would serve my country in other ways, but I'd give my life for my country. But I'm not going to walk into a contaminated area just to be a part of, you know, I guess testing special equipment and weapon systems. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to my friends. I would tell anybody, don't do it.
I have to ask, any aliens?
They're not green or gray. They're purple. No, I'm just kidding. No, the whole time I was there, I never saw anything. We were cleared to see a lot of areas, a lot of places. And it's a big desert, but where I was, I saw nothing that would indicate anything. Even while we were there, we didn't talk about that stuff. You know, we knew. So it's nice to think all that stuff. You know, I can't speak for the entire Nevada desert, but where we were, I didn't see anything.
I want to be super clear. So what age did the first tumor appear? And then how many spots have you had burnt off? And then what is the cancer cream, the chemotherapy cream that you're starting? Can you just put that all in one sentence for us?
Right. Well, the first, the fatty tumors started about 30 years old. When the first one started to pop up, and they just, over the years, have just, probably over 20 years, they just keep, new areas keep popping up. Probably a dozen. Skin cancers, I would say 4 that have been cut out. I've had probably 50 spots frozen off of me, and then my VA dermatologists have issued me some cream, some chemotherapy cream to start applying to start burning off any precancerous stuff on my face. He said do it on anywhere on the body, really, on arms and stuff. So, you know, it's just something they told me you're going to be coming in here every 6 months for the rest of your life.
How old are most of the people who are passing away who you served with?
They're going to range from late 50s to 75, 80, something like that. You know, our age. You know.
Do you worry about the future?
Absolutely. I don't know what's around the corner. I don't know if I have other things that I haven't been checked for. You know, when you see your buddies keep coming down with things, that, you know, you're a fool not to worry. And there's nothing we can do about it.
I want you to just set the scene of the barbecue for me, because we're going to have to tell the story, and I don't know if I have enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of day was it? What was on the grill? What were you guys drinking? Was it good to see everyone again? How old was everyone? How long has it been since you'd seen each other? Tell me those details.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it was early October, so it was just beautiful weather here in Las Vegas. We were here in Dave's backyard, just regular burgers, hot dogs, sitting around telling war stories like you always do when a group of veterans get together, old buddies. That was probably about 8 years ago, something like that. I don't remember the exact date, but it was good to see everyone. It was good to start to get together and just relaxed. And when you get back together with your military buddies, people you served with, you can be an old man, but it's like you were all a bunch of 20-year-olds again. So you can imagine that environment, you know, and just drinking beer and enjoying ourselves.
How long had it been since you'd seen each other?
Probably about 25, 30 years. Like I said, Facebook is a wonderful thing for putting people back together again. And that's where it all started.
Yeah. And you had a fatty tumor that was causing you pain at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Where was it?
It was on my back, kind of in the middle of my back, a little bit to the right. It's like something constantly poking you in the back, you know, that pressure. So, but the VA cut it out, you know.
And you just mentioned it.
Yeah. And I said, what about this? I mean, what is this? And I started asking them about it, and they said, well, we'll take them all out for you. You can only do one at a time. So I'm still in that process.
Yeah. Did you expect when you brought it up that October day it would open a whole can of worms?
I had no idea. I was just curious. I mean, it's one of those things that's in the back of my mind for a long time, wondering, you know, what's going on here? Where could this be coming from? You know, and I didn't get any answers from doctors. They'll just, lipomas, people get them.
Aren't you glad you asked that question that day?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm thankful for Dave Crete having that same passion to find out for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the veterans, they're older. They can't do this kind of they don't have this kind of energy to pursue all this and to research all this. They don't even have a lot of skills at going onto the internet and stuff. So, you know, it falls on us, and it's just to make sure that everybody gets taken care of.
How many thousands of vets do you suspect may be affected from their time at the range?
I would suspect, you know, we were never given a complete number. Based on trying to figure out how many in each unit, somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people. It was relatively small. The base didn't have the numbers that a normal base would have. It was it was personnel. It was staffed pretty light compared to other bases that I've been to. So I would guess probably, and everybody served for 4-year stretches. So I'd guess 5,000 to 10,000 people
are affected, or were out there?
We're out there.
How many people do you think have serious health effects?
Man, it seems like everybody's got something. If not them directly, then their children have issues, or their wives. I know a few that wives have passed away from strange lung issues. Well, you know what? You come home from the desert with all that dust on you. The wives get your bags out. They're full of dust, starting in your laundry. They breathe all that in. And us as airmen, as security police, one of our jobs was an observation post. We would go out into the desert, on the desert floor at night, and sit out there for 12 hours in the dirt, rolling around in the dirt. We had no idea that all that dirt was contaminated. So that's how I can transfer the wives, and of course, your children, to reproductive issues.
Thank you.
So, all right, thanks.